Sunday mornings in my kitchen were usually quiet, warm, and sweet with the smell of pancakes. I was humming to myself, lost in the rhythm of flipping batter and pouring orange juice, when I heard the quick patter of little feet. Emily came running in, her curls bouncing, her cheeks flushed with excitement. She was clutching a wrinkled piece of paper like it was a secret she couldn't hold another second. "Mommy, look, I drew our family," she said, her voice bubbling with pride. I turned, smiling, already imagining the colorful mess of stick figures and hearts. "Aw, that's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, wiping my hands and kneeling beside her. "That's you, me, and Daddy, right?" She nodded so fast I almost laughed. "Yes! And Daddy's other mommy." The words came out so casually, like she was describing the sun or her favorite doll. At first, I didn't even process it. I smiled automatically, waiting for her to giggle and say she was joking. But she didn't. She just stared at the drawing, two women next to the same man, her little fingers tracing the bright yellow hair and pink nails of the second mommy. My heart gave a strange, heavy thud. Something cold crawled up my spine, and in that single moment, my Sunday morning felt different. I tried to keep my voice steady, though my throat suddenly felt tight. "What do you mean, honey? There's only one mommy? You drew two." Emily tilted her head, her little face serious, as if I'd just forgotten something obvious. "No, Mommy. I saw Daddy with the other lady at the playground. She had yellow hair and pink nails. They were hugging." She said it so plainly, so innocently, that for a moment, the words didn't even sound real. But they were. Every single one of them. I felt the room tilt just slightly, like the air had shifted and left me breathless. My smile stayed frozen on my face, but my hands trembled as I looked at that paper. Two mommies, one daddy. My husband, laughing, hugging, somewhere I wasn't supposed to see. I forced a small laugh, the kind mothers use to protect their children from storms they don't understand. "Thank you for showing me, baby," I whispered, kissing her warm forehead. "Mommy's gonna go talk to Daddy later, okay?" She nodded happily and skipped away, completely unaware that her drawing had just cracked something wide open inside me. I stood there for a long time, the sound of her little footsteps fading down the hall, while the paper in my hand shook with every heartbeat. I couldn't stop staring at it, the innocent truth drawn in crayon by the only person who didn't mean to hurt me at all. For the rest of that morning, I moved like a shadow through my own house. The smell of breakfast still lingered, but I couldn't taste a thing. Every sound felt distant. The hum of the refrigerator, the clinking of Emily's spoon against her cereal bowl, the cartoon voices from the TV. And yet, that one sentence from her kept replaying in my head like a broken song. Daddy's other mommy. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she saw someone who looked like him. Maybe she misunderstood. But then I remembered the way Emily described the woman, the yellow hair, the pink nails, the way they were hugging. Details. Kids don't make up details like that. I found myself staring at the clock, watching the hands crawl, waiting for the moment Ryan would walk through that door. But when he did, what would I even say? How do you confront someone with the truth your child drew in crayon? I looked down at the paper again, my heart twisting as I traced the tiny figures with my finger. The colors were bright, too bright for what they meant. I didn't know it then, but that little drawing was about to change everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and family. The rest of that day felt like walking through fog. I smiled when Emily spoke to me, laughed at her cartoons, and folded laundry like nothing was wrong. But inside, everything was shifting. That innocent drawing sat tucked inside my purse, its edges already soft from how many times I'd taken it out and stared at it. I told myself I needed proof, something real, something adult, before I could let my heart believe what my daughter had seen. When Ryan came home that night, I watched him closely, pretending to scroll through my phone while he kicked off his shoes. He smelled like his usual cologne, the one I used to find comforting, but now it only made my stomach twist. "How was your day, honey?" I asked, forcing lightness into my voice. "Did you and Emily go to the park this week?" He looked up from his plate, casual, easy. "Yeah, maybe once or twice. Why? Did you meet anyone there? I said, keeping my tone soft, like I was just making small talk. He shrugged, avoiding my eyes for just a second too long. Just other parents. Small talk. That pause, that hesitation, it was small, but it cut deep. Why? He asked again, sharper this time. I smiled, my lips tight. Just wondering. And in that moment, I knew. I didn't need him to say it. His silence told me everything. That night, when Ryan stepped into the shower, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at his phone on the nightstand. My hands felt cold, but my heart was on fire. I'd never been the kind of woman who snooped, but something in me shifted after that drawing. I needed truth more than pride. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling slightly, and unlocked it with the code I knew by heart, the same birthday he always forgot to celebrate properly. At first, everything looked normal, work messages, group chats. Then I saw it, a name that didn't belong. Cousin Anna. My chest tightened. Ryan didn't have a cousin named Anna. I opened the thread, and my stomach turned as the words filled the screen. Can't wait to see you at the park again. Miss your touch. Another message below it. You looked so beautiful today. I felt the blood drain from my face. The phone slipped a little in my hand. For a moment, I just sat there, listening to the sound of the water running behind the bathroom door, trying to remember how to breathe. I wanted to cry, scream, throw something. But instead, I stared at those messages until the screen went dark. And in that reflection, I saw a woman I barely recognized, quiet, still, and done pretending. I placed the phone back exactly where it was, the screen now black and harmless, though I knew what it hid. When Ryan stepped out of the bathroom, steam following him like a cloud, I pretended to be half asleep. He leaned down, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "Love you." His voice used to calm me. That night, it sounded like a stranger's. I waited until his breathing grew steady beside me before I let my own tears fall, quiet, controlled, almost dignified. But beneath the heartbreak, something else started to take root. A strange, sharp calm. I wasn't going to scream or beg or ask him why. I'd seen enough to know that truth rarely comes from the guilty. It has to be found. So I decided that from that moment on, I would watch, listen, and learn. No more blind trust, no more pretending not to see what was right in front of me. When I finally closed my eyes, the image that haunted me wasn't the text, or the woman, or even Ryan's face. It was Emily's drawing, her tiny hand gripping a crayon, her proud little smile. She didn't mean to expose him. She just told the truth the way children always do. Simple, pure, and devastatingly clear. And I knew that the next time he left this house, I'd be ready. The next few days were a strange performance. I smiled when I had to, cooked dinner, asked about his day, all while memorizing his patterns. It's funny how, when your heart breaks, your eyes start working better. I noticed everything now, how he checked his phone in the laundry room, how he suddenly needed air after dinner, how he came home with faint traces of perfume that wasn't mine. Each detail was a breadcrumb, and I was quietly collecting them all. I told myself I wouldn't confront him until I was certain. So, one afternoon, while he was in the shower again, I opened a small box I'd ordered online, a GPS tracker no bigger than a matchbox. My hands didn't shake this time as I tucked it under the passenger seat of his car. I'd never done anything like that in my life, but betrayal changes what feels right and wrong. It turns survival into instinct. That evening, when he kissed me goodbye and said he was heading to the gym, I smiled sweetly and told him to drive safe. The moment the door closed, I opened the tracker app on my phone. The pin moved, straight toward the park, not the gym, not even close. My chest felt tight, but there was no panic anymore. Just confirmation, just the quiet, steady pulse of truth. The next afternoon, I told Emily we were going out for ice cream. She squealed with excitement, her curls bouncing as she ran to get her shoes. My voice didn't waver, my smile didn't crack, not once. That's the thing about being a mother. Even when your world is collapsing, you learn to hold it together for the little eyes watching you. We drove slowly, my heart pounding with every turn until the park came into view. I parked across the street, pretending to look for a spot while my gaze searched the benches. And there he was, Ryan, sitting casually with a blonde woman. She laughed at something he said, tossing her hair back, sunlight catching the yellow just like Emily had described. Pink nails flashed when she touched his arm. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles went white. Emily was happily licking her ice cream in the back seat, unaware of what her mother was seeing. I whispered under my breath, "Yellow hair, pink nails, just like you said, baby." My phone camera trembled slightly as I lifted it, zooming in, capturing the betrayal frame by frame. Each photo was another piece of the puzzle, another nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. I sat there for a long moment, watching them through the windshield. The two of them looked so comfortable together, laughing, leaning close, their hands brushing like it was the most natural thing in the world. I should have felt rage, or heartbreak, or maybe both. But instead, I felt still, empty, but sharp. Like everything inside me had gone quiet, just so I could finally hear the truth. And that truth was louder than any scream. I took a deep breath and snapped a few more photos, my fingers steady now. It wasn't about catching him anymore. It was about reclaiming myself, the part of me that refused to live blind, that refused to be lied to. I watched him glance at his phone, check the time, and kiss her on the cheek before walking back to his car. I memorized the way he did it, casual and familiar, like he'd done it 100 times before. As I drove home, Emily hummed softly in the back seat, her voice light and pure. I looked at her through the mirror, my reason, my anchor, my strength. I knew what I had to do next. This wasn't about revenge anymore, not yet. This was about gathering every truth he thought I'd never find, because when I finally confronted him, I wanted there to be no room left for denial. That night, the house felt different. Still, but not peaceful, like the quiet that comes before a storm. I set the table the same way I always did. Plates, silverware, folded napkins. But this time, I added something new. Emily's drawing, right in the center, its bright colors glowing under the soft light, and next to it, the printed photos from the park. Proof. Truth. A mirror he couldn't escape. When I heard his car pull into the driveway, my heart didn't race. I was past that. I was beyond fear. He walked in, smiling, the scent of his cologne trailing behind him. "Smells good. What's for dinner?" he asked cheerfully. I looked up from the table and said, "Lies." "Served cold." He froze, his smile fading. "What?" he asked, confusion flickering across his face like a bad actor missing his line. I didn't move. I just slid the drawing toward him, my fingers brushing the paper gently. "Emily drew this," I said quietly. "She said she saw you with another woman. I didn't believe her, until I saw it myself." His eyes darted from the drawing to the photos. The color drained from his face. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Only guilt, thick and silent, hanging between us like smoke. "Laura, please. It's not what you think," he stammered, his voice cracking. "She's just a friend, I swear." I almost laughed. A friend. The word sounded ridiculous after everything I'd seen. The messages, the park, the way his hand lingered on hers. I leaned forward, sliding the photos across the table until they stopped right in front of him. "Friends don't meet in secret, Ryan. And they don't hold hands at the park while your daughter watches." He tried to reach for me, but I pulled my hands back, crossing my arms tightly across my chest. I wanted him to feel the distance, to understand that he'd built this wall, not me. "I made a mistake," he said, his voice small now. "Please, we can fix this." I shook my head slowly. "Fix this?" I repeated, the words tasting bitter. "You can't fix something you shattered on purpose." He looked broken, desperate, pacing behind the chair like a trapped animal. For years I'd imagined what betrayal might look like, something cinematic, dramatic, but standing there it just felt empty, quiet. like watching a movie you already know the ending to. I looked down at Emily's drawing again, the bright colors now sharp and painful. "You lied to me, Ryan," I said softly. "But worse, you lied to her." He stopped pacing then, his shoulders slumping like a man who finally saw the size of his own ruin. "Laura, please," he whispered, his voice barely holding together. "I can change. I'll end it. Just don't do this." I watched him for a long moment, memorizing the cracks in his mask, the panic, the regret, the sudden understanding that I wasn't the same woman he'd lied to. "You're right," I said quietly. "Something will change, but not the way you think." He blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" I stood, gathering the photos, sliding them into an envelope along with the drawing. My movements were deliberate, almost graceful, like I'd rehearsed them in another life. "I'll fix it," I said. "My way." His lips parted, but I didn't wait for a reply. I just turned away, my footsteps echoing softly on the tile, the smell of dinner still lingering. Burnt now, just like us. That night, I didn't sleep beside him. I lay awake in Emily's room, listening to the rhythm of her breathing, the peace in it. I realized then that my life wasn't ending. It was beginning again, piece by piece, exactly where he thought he'd broken me. Tomorrow would be the start. Tomorrow, the truth he hid would finally cost him everything he thought he owned. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. The air felt different, lighter, almost clean, as if something poisonous had finally left the house. Ryan was still asleep when I walked past our bedroom door, his face buried in the same pillow he used to lie to me from. I didn't look back. I poured myself a cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up the email from my lawyer. The subject line was simple. Prenuptial clause. Infidelity. I spent the next hour organizing everything. The photos, the screenshots, the texts. Every lie now had a timestamp. Every secret had a file name. When I finally walked into my lawyer's office later that morning, she looked at the folder in my hands and nodded, almost like she already knew. "With this evidence," she said, flipping through the pages, "he doesn't stand a chance. You'll get the house, custody, and full support." Her tone was calm, efficient, professional. I felt a faint smile touch my lips. "Perfect," I told her. He wanted 2 women in his life. Now he'll end up with none. Saying it out loud didn't bring joy exactly. It brought closure, the kind that settles deep in your bones, the kind that makes you stand taller. Because this wasn't vengeance out of hate. It was justice born from truth. By the time I got home, the silence in the house didn't hurt anymore. It felt intentional, like peace had finally moved back in after a long absence. I packed slowly, only taking what belonged to Emily and me. The rest could stay. Let him live among the ghosts he created. I left the bedroom untouched, the sheets still tangled from the night before, his side of the bed unmade. It wasn't my mess to fix anymore. Before leaving, I taped something to the fridge, Emily's drawing, the same one that had started it all. Next to it, I placed a small handwritten note. "Our daughter saw who you really are. Now, the world will too." It wasn't anger that guided my hand. It was truth. Simple, quiet truth. The kind he could never delete or talk his way out of. Then I turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked away without looking back. When he came home that evening, I imagined him finding the note, the empty rooms, the echo of what used to be our life. Maybe he'd call my name. Maybe he'd sit in silence, staring at the drawing like I once did, realizing that innocence is what ends up revealing everything. Either way, it didn't matter. For the first time in years, what he felt wasn't my burden to carry. The next few days passed like a dream, not the kind that feels unreal, but the kind that feels earned. I met with my lawyer again, signed the final papers, and handed over every piece of evidence I'd collected. Watching her seal that envelope felt symbolic, like closing the final chapter of a book I never wanted to write. Ryan called a few times, sent messages I didn't open, but silence became my language now, a quiet I wore like armor. At night, When Emily slept beside me in our temporary apartment, I'd look at her peaceful face and realize how much stronger we were without the lies. She'd ask about Daddy sometimes, in that soft, curious way kids do, and I'd just tell her, Daddy's figuring things out, because he was, just not the way he imagined. Every lie has a way of teaching the truth eventually, even to the one who told it. I started to breathe again, to live again. I'd make breakfast, braid Emily's hair, open the windows wide, and let sunlight fill the rooms. There was no more pretending, no more looking over my shoulder. Just us. Just peace. And deep down, I knew this wasn't revenge anymore. It was rebirth. The kind that only comes when you stop waiting for an apology and start creating your own freedom. Months later, Emily and I moved into a little house near the beach. It wasn't fancy, but it felt alive. The kind of place that breathed with us instead of against us. The mornings smelled of salt and coffee, and the ocean sounded like forgiveness rolling against the shore. I started my own small business from the kitchen table, nothing grand, just enough to rebuild our lives one honest piece at a time. Every day felt like a fresh page, no more secrets, no more shadows. Emily loved the beach. She'd run toward the waves with her arms stretched wide, her laughter blending with the wind. One afternoon, she came running back to me, holding a small seashell shaped like a heart. "Mommy, look!" she giggled. "It's like a heart!" I knelt down, brushing the sand from her cheeks, and smiled. "It is, sweetheart. Just like ours. Stronger now." We sat there for a while, watching the horizon. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and rose, and I felt something I hadn't in a long time, peace that didn't depend on anyone else. When my phone buzzed, I looked down. An unknown number. "I miss you. Please talk to me." I stared at the words for a heartbeat, then deleted them without a trace. Some stories don't deserve a sequel. As the sky darkened, Emily rested her head against my shoulder, her tiny fingers tangled with mine. The waves whispered softly, steady and endless, like time healing what betrayal once tore apart. I watched the horizon, feeling the kind of calm that comes only when you've walked through fire and refused to burn. There was no bitterness left in me, only understanding that sometimes the breaking is what sets you free. I thought about the woman I used to be, trusting, patient, waiting for love to mean safety. She was gone now, but not in sadness. She'd simply evolved into someone who no longer begged to be chosen, someone who knew her worth didn't depend on another person's honesty. Beside me, Emily's breathing grew slower, her tiny body warm against mine, and I knew this was all I needed: truth, peace, and her. I smiled at the waves and whispered softly, more to myself than to anyone else. He broke our family with a lie. I rebuilt it with truth. The tide came in and kissed the edge of my toes, cool and grounding, a reminder that life keeps moving, no matter what tries to stop it. And for the first time in forever, I felt ready. Ready for tomorrow. Ready for whatever came next. As we walked back toward the house, the cool sand pressed between my toes, and the wind played gently with my hair. The porch light in the distance glowed like a beacon, not of waiting, but of belonging. I realized then that this was what healing looked like, not forgetting, not erasing, but choosing peace over pain, again and again, until it becomes second nature. My heart didn't ache anymore. It simply beat, steady, certain, free. Emily ran ahead, twirling in the fading light, her laughter echoing through the air like music I never wanted to end. I watched her, realizing that the love I'd built now was honest, unbreakable, born from everything that once tried to destroy me. That's the strange gift of betrayal. It teaches you how to rebuild with stronger hands. I took one last look at the ocean, its waves rising and falling in their endless rhythm, and smiled. "We're okay now," I whispered, not as a hope, but as a fact. Then I turned toward the house, toward our future, the sound of Emily's laughter guiding me home.